So if you've been following along the last couple of weeks, this is our third week in the 6th chapter of John. We have 2 more weeks in John 6 to go. Can we take it much longer? Because Jesus is still talking about bread. The bread of life, the bread from heaven, the living bread. Jesus says, I am the bread of life. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Now, remember earlier in John chapter 6, this is just after Jesus fed the 5,000 people with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. And now he's still trying to make his point, a point that really can't be made clearly because it defies reason and the limits of language. No wonder this section is confusing. Jesus says, it's not about that bread. It's about a spiritual bread, a heavenly bread. And that bread is, well, it's me. I am the bread. Just as manna and from heaven sustained our ancestors as they journeyed through the wilderness, so I will sustain you on your journey through the wilderness. Now, for me, this whole confounding bread of life discourse that we find in John chapter 6, it all comes down to just that. Jesus will sustain us as we travel through the wilderness. Just like the manna, Jesus is a gift from God. Just like the manna, Jesus provides life. Just like the manna, Jesus reveals God's presence. Jesus is the bread that will sustain us, which is fantastic news because I need some sustaining, and we are definitely in the wilderness. Some of us may have been in the wilderness for quite some time now, managing grief or illness, relationship stress, or job challenges, or any of the myriad other things that life brings. Some of us may have found ourselves thrust into the wilderness exactly 17 months ago when the world shut down. And we wondered if we'd all die in our homes, binge watching Tiger King and trolling the internet for Clorox wipes. Now, thank God we've moved on to watching Outer Banks instead, and we no longer disinfect our milk cartons. But we also keep seeing mirages. The oasis is up ahead, we cry. We're almost back to normal. Everything is fine. And indeed, so many things are infinitely better than they were in, say, January, when 3,000 people were dying every day. Now we have vaccines and we're traveling, we gather with family, there's vacations and summer camp. But still, we dwell in uncertainty. The next variant looms. Our nation's dangerous divide looms. Flood and fire from climate change loom. And we are just all changed forever. We're traveling through the wilderness still. Maybe some of us will get to the promised land. Maybe we feel like we're still there. We're still living in peace and contentment. Or maybe some of us will have blessed chunks of time without sickness or fear. Or maybe none of us will get there. Perhaps we're in this wilderness for the rest of our lives, struggling, hoping, journeying, doing our best to bring compassion and justice to our fellow travelers. But still, there is joy in this wilderness, and beauty, and love. And we have each other. And we have God's promise that we will be fed with manna, fed with the presence of Jesus. We are promised to be fed in a way miraculous and unexplainable, and beyond words or understanding, and yet real, because millions who have gone before us have testified to Christ's presence being what sustained them and gave them life. So may it be so with us as we move through these uncertain times, as we move through the changing of tides. May we trust that bread of life is available to refresh us. Now, I was in Yosemite National Park only once, many years ago. When I lived in California after college, a friend and I went there for the weekend. It was a quick trip, but we camped and hiked and visited one of the amazing waterfalls in Yosemite. On our last day, we did a hike that I remember as being sort of switchbacks up a steep, rocky mountain. It was a narrow, gravelly path, and we just kept going back and forth to reach the view at the summit. It wasn't a very long hike, so some folks underestimated the heat and the exertion required and were trying to just saunter up the mountain in sandals, carrying no supplies. My friend and I, of course, had overestimated, and so we carried backpacks full of water and snacks for days, windbreakers, a raincoat, extra socks, Band-Aids, and so forth. Now, it's interesting, I have zero memory of the summit or what we found at the top or the view or anything, no idea. But I have a very clear memory of what happened on the way down. As we made our way down, we ran into a young guy who'd stopped on the gravelly path, and he was looking rough. He was all sweaty and red in the face and breathing hard, and he was wearing tiny little inappropriate sneakers and carrying nothing. He turned to us and said, "Hey, could you guys help me?" And I braced myself for his request. I wondered, is he going to want water? Does he want our food? Was he injured? Heat stroke, disorientation, bear attack, sprained ankle? What could it be? Instead, he just said, "Could I have a stick of gum?" And weirdly enough, my friend actually had gum. So we gave him a piece. "That's all you want?" we asked the guy, because he looked like he could use a lot more than a stick of gum. "That's all," he said. "Thank you so much. This will keep me going." And he continued on his way, happily chewing the piece of gum. He literally just needed the taste of refreshment to keep going. I have thought of that often. May it be so for us as we continue our journey through the wilderness, handing out gum and water and love as needed, getting through the rough patches together, offering refreshment to those in need, and always remembering to stop and look at the view, because there is still joy in this wilderness, and there is beauty, and there is the bread of life, because God is with us. Amen.